So let's just work our way through this issue of why lead. If I could pick up the question, why do we need leaders? What's the big deal? Or rather, let's phrase it a different way. Can you imagine what would need to happen in the world so we wouldn't need leaders? Let's just have a buzz around the table. Just have a quick discussion. You know, what do you think would have to happen so we no longer needed leaders? Over to you. It's only a minute. Just have a think about it. What would have to happen so we didn't need them?
People would have to be very autonomous. Would everybody have to think for themselves?
I'm just listening.
Power and control and
Wait, we don't already do that.
I missed the joke there.
Giant collective.
Giant collective. No leaders. So everybody...
spend every day in meetings.
Okay, it's about 5 seconds left. Okay, I've picked up that one group thing that we'd all live in this enormous collective where we'd spend all our days in meetings and do nothing at all.
We already do that.
Okay, anything else? What else would have to happen so that we wouldn't need leaders?
No new ideas.
No new ideas. So if there was no new ideas, we wouldn't need them. What else?
Everyone would have to be self-motivated.
Self-motivated people who know what they're doing and just get on and don't relate to anyone else. Great, what else?
No conflict.
There's no conflict, there's nothing to resolve.
No competition.
There's no competition. That sounds really like today, doesn't it? No. Okay. The reality is, leadership becomes important when things are happening, when there's change, when there's activity. If there's very little of that, if there's very little of the need to actually correlate and coordinate what's happening, then you really don't need them. But there's one real issue, which is the difference between leaders and managers. And I think that's quite a crucial one. Because sometimes you have an organization and it has these people who are called leaders, but somehow or other, they're not really changing things. They're delivering what they're supposed to and probably what they delivered last year. And it's a really important distinction. If you think about it, you have to be able to recognize how you become a manager. How do you become a manager? You do good work, the organization grows, yes? One day, someone comes to you. Who comes to you? Another leader pats you on the head and anoints you and said, "Thou art now manager, arise and take thy region." Am I right? Okay. How do you become a leader? What's a leader? What's the difference between that? Now, I want you to imagine something, okay? I want you to imagine that a naked man painted a weird shade of blue, bursts in through the door, and runs around the room going, okay? And we all watch them, and he runs out again. We go, what's that? Okay? Now, if he's on his own, we worry about this person's state of mind. However, if another 15 seconds later, 20 other naked men and women, also painted bright blue, same shade, burst in and run around going, it basically means that first one was a leader. Do you understand? Leadership isn't about the content. It's some weird thing which says when other people decide to follow you, that's what makes you a leader. And that's how you can tell. So people can say, that person is a world leader. If no one's following them, believe me, they're not. Yeah? Or they can say, I'm a great leader. You look, nobody's taking any notice of them. They're doing their own thing. Oh, yeah. They're not a leader. It's a very simple thing. They are people who we need when we get into an environment where there's an awful lot of change. Now, that's straightforward enough. But one weird thing which has happened is we've always had leaders. You look through history, we've had leaders in times of war, leaders in times of peace, blah, 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 etc. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is how the world has shaped itself in order to make sure that we actually do need not just lots of leaders, but we actually need a different type of leader. And the way I'm going to try and explain that, if that's okay to you, is just think about what your experiences you were talking about today, and we'll do a little timeline. I'll put time on this axis here, and I'll make this one here now, and I'll make this one here the past. Okay, which one is higher in terms of the level of change and the complexity and the interconnectedness you need to do? Now or the past? Now? Okay, so we've got 1 point here, 1 point here. How are the 2 points joined together? Is it a straight line? Is it a wiggly line? Does it slow down? So every Sunday it slows down and it speeds up again. Is that right? The world speeds up, then slows down. I want to come and live in your world. Yeah, the nightmare one, which I tend to live in, basically seems to do that. Okay, not interesting. That's not the interesting part. The interesting part is how we as an organization learning and changing and developing to match. Now, I bet you do budgets. Yeah? Budgets basically mean that you assume you can predict the future. That's the whole idea, isn't it? So predict the future, yeah. So once upon a time, I think companies and organizations could predict the future. When I started my career, I worked for Shell. We used to do a budget. We used to take us about 6 months before we got variances on our budget. We could see into the future. I'm going to make the assumption that once upon a time, you were above the line. You could learn fast and the world was changing. Yeah? What's happened to your ability, so this is you, this is the world, to learn and change over that period of time? Okay, we'll do it together like a pantomime. I'll move the pen horizontally. You tell me your experience. This is the 10-year horizon, okay? Shout up a bit, down a bit, the same. And we'll get some sort of mixed analysis and we'll move forward. So I'm moving horizontal unless you say otherwise. And action, go. Are you changing faster than the world? No? Okay, this, guys, is where everything falls over, and this is why I quit my job at a traditional business school. Very simply, if you are on this side of that crossover point there, you can learn fast and the world is changing. What that means is that you have some sort of level of control over what's going on. You can see what's coming, you can plan it properly, your budgets work. You know that when you put forward a proposal for, I don't know, full cost recovery, people would understand what you're talking about and they know exactly where you're coming from. That's that side of the world. They know you know. This side of the world, it shifts faster than you can learn. Think about it. On this side of the world, what you find is that usually you're quite happy to go along with the person who's most experienced because they've done it over and over before. Over this side of the line, do you have sometimes junior people to you coming and fixing your PC? So you don't know all the answers, even though you're more senior. How come? Surely you should do. Because on this side of the line, the learning is falling behind the rate of change of the world. Do you understand the difference? Now, what that does is it basically breaks everything. I don't just mean it breaks one or two things. I mean it basically breaks everything. It changes how we see things, but more importantly, it changes how things... You guys are too serious. It changes how things relate to each other, okay? So just walk your way through it. I've got a list of stuff there. I'll start with decision making, then we'll think about leadership. I started my career with a company called Shell. And when I went on my first training course, they taught me how to make decisions. They said, when you want to make a decision, see problem, analyze, gather data, analyze, generate options, deliver, so work out list of solutions, select one. That was our decision making process. Can you see the logic to that? See the problem, think about it, collect the data. Okay, now, that probably works on this side. What do you think happens if I apply that method on that side? It's too slow. It's obsolete. But I was taught that. It must surely be true still. The news is, the game has changed, that leadership, even how we think about it, also needs to shift. And the classic way of people thinking about leadership is from the top. So we look to the person at the top and say, when they do it, I'll do it too, and stuff like that, okay? There's a sort of a leading by fixing things. As the leader, you say, go north, go south, etc. As the leader, you use your knowledge and your experience. Everyone respects that. That, for me, is stuff from that old world.